Gentrification of public offices, increase of expense beyond income, growth, and entailment of public debt or indicators soliciting the employment of a pruning knife. This is something that Thomas Jefferson said, and I think it fits true for the issue that we're facing today. I think just like the gentleman said before me, anytime we're looking at issues in DuPont, we do have to get historical, and I believe that there were decisions made by the few, and allowance was not made for us, the people sitting in this room, the people that are forced to make the decision now. They're coming to us to bail them out. They wrote a check that they could not pay, and I find it sort of humorous that we're sitting in this building instead of the Civic Center because maybe it can accommodate us. Now, we can't change that, but what I do see is that there was at least a past trend of management by crisis, and here we are again, and we're faced with very hard decisions. I appreciate the committee's time that they took to go through these numbers and reveal it to us, and I don't want to cut anything more than the next guy. However, there is a policy and I believe a leadership attitude change that needs to take place in order to get us out of this rut that we're in, and it's not going to be easy. I guess what I will say in the form of a question, and I'll pose this mostly to the people that are involved in the process. If anybody involved in the process has purchased or as their investment has an interest in the Civic Center bonds, I would please make sure that they either recuse themselves or make that apparent for the process of transparency. My first question would be, how does the Glacier Northwest Mining Fund of, I think it used to be $1 million, did that pay into any decision-making process for the committee? And then the second question would be,
30 seconds.
When, I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Jim, you want to answer that one?
The committee did not specifically address that reserve fund, and although it came up in conversations, but the committee did not directly address that fund.
I'm sorry. The question really was whether or not the committee considered it, and it did not. And I guess that it didn't, but it will. It goes into on this recording. We will note that, and the council will take it under consideration. But it did not come up on any agenda that anyone asked to reveal. And this was driven both by presentations and the committee's interest in looking at all the things we looked at.
Chris Ryan? I didn't understand the question. Did you?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you. And I've lived here for 5 years. Beautiful city. Love living here. Everyone is friendly. Love the military. Love everyone here. Very nice place. We should be doing more things like this golf course right here, I think. Bring people in, they spend money. I just have a comment. Before I can ask to pay for the Civic Center, I think we should be able to have a meeting there. So that's just my comment.
And I'll just tell you, it was a capacity issue. We couldn't get this many people in the Civic Center. So, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay, and I have received this email earlier. So this email comes from Mike Winkler. He says, based upon the summarized comments of Deanna Gregory, bond counsel for the Pacific Law Group, it appears that actual numbers were not run to do a cost comparison of a bond refinance to the cost of the certificates over the life of the loan. I recommend that a bond refinance be explored in more detail. Although I do not provide a recommendation of who to use, I am familiar with Seattle Northwest Securities as one option. As mentioned in the minutes, running a bond to refinance the loan is a possible option. While the money will need to go into an escrow with the money used to pay off the current certificates, it does provide a stable funding source that both the city and taxpayers can depend on. As soon as the 10-year call protection of the current certificates are met, the certificates could be paid off from the escrow. The interest rate on the current bond may be far lower than the true interest rate of 6.113% listed in the minutes, which may result in substantial savings over the remainder of the loan after the certificates are paid off. My question is, if the city had a stable funding source to make the building payment, would enough funds be freed up to meet the operational budget needs? Just right into the record. Do we have other questions, comments?
I've got more.
Go.
There was
I
a
did.
question. Are we going to wait for them to make an answer?
They answered it. So the glacier, did they consider the Glacier Reserve Fund? Well, it's just a question. I don't believe they can answer it. It's read into the record. This is not a question and answer unless it is something that the committee feels it can answer.
Now, we made a decision collectively as a group, but because we don't have the right answers to give you all about the idea of the purchase price of the Civic Center, because we don't have that, because it hasn't been researched, because we don't have legal matters pending, we don't have a committee that's researching that. That question is great. I think it's amazing. I think that is something that the next group that comes in behind us and looks at the Civic Center and the building costs, they see too. But we don't have the answers today. So asking more questions about the building and the cost per square foot, great to answer them, but we don't have the answers right now as a committee. So it's not that it's not a waste of time. We just can't answer that right now. So we can't answer that question right now. We want to, but we can't answer it right now.
Pete Pelletier. To the committee and to the council, for the future, for now, for the future, conservative is not a four-letter word. The key is, I think, it looks like the 1% increase in property tax seems one firm means in which to generate the revenue. Key is, have you done a study that looks at future sales in property values for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? It gives you a projection. You have an individual that said he's a real estate agent. He can give you what the current market values are as they're selling. In other words, what's that level of increase? But you should do a study, because if you're going to take 1% and add it to our property value tax, you need to be able to know that you're going to live within that means of 1%. If there's a need next year to come for another one because there's still a need, and don't shake your head, because there's always that possibility. The last one is in reference to fire and safety. You had a gentleman address, what is the reciprocal that we have with Joint Base Lewis McChord to provide support? I think within this community, with Lakewood, with DuPont, and around the area, I believe they do communicate with fire and safety to do some type of reciprocal type response before you spend additional money. Matt Moyer? Or Chief Moyer?
Excuse me, here, matter of fact, I'm going to have Chief Hull, if you don't mind, answer that question for you.
Through Pierce County, we do have reciprocal mutual aid agreements with all departments in Pierce County. However, we strive to meet a 5 to 6 minute response time anywhere in DuPont, and we don't accomplish that with mutual aid, and certainly the mutual aid times for ALS response are extremely long. But we do maintain those mutual aid agreements.
Matt Royer.
So I have just a general question. First of all, I appreciate all your guys' work. Thanks for volunteering for the time. And my question is on the BTO tax. I guess, or BTO tax. I guess I just want to understand where DuPont is competitively with other cities for that particular tax assessment on business. And I guess with a lot of our zoning in DuPont being research, manufacturing, and so forth, and a lot of it being vacant right now, my concern is by doubling that BTO tax, we might be discouraging additional businesses coming in. And I understand that that might seem like a small revenue increase based on or compared to the taxes we pay for residential, but I guess I would like to understand a little more on where we stand competitively with everybody else.
The B&O taxes.
It's not.
It's a good question. The B&O taxes here in DuPont are 1%, 0.1, I'm sorry. And of the research that we did, they range anywhere from 0.1, which is ours, to on average, well, majority of them are 0.2%. So increasing it by 2 was, I'm a business owner here in DuPont. It's a pill to swallow, but I think it's for the good of the community. And honestly, I own another business in Yelm, and out there, the B&O tax as well is 0.02%. So looking at the other cities, we are on the lower end of the B&O tax. And as far as discouraging future businesses, no, I don't think it'll discourage. The city drying up and dying, I think that'll discourage future businesses. So yeah, the increase by 1 won't hurt it.
But that was a good question, because that was discussed, that any of these increases in taxes that would affect businesses, certainly a big discussion was, will we discourage them from coming? Because there are other reasons why businesses seem to not want to come to DuPont right now. So we don't want to give them any more reason not to come.
We have a comment from someone who said I can go ahead and read it for him. The city property tax comparison slide does not include the Northwest Landing ROA use tax. Question. I said no, it doesn't. That's not included in it. That's a whole separate entity, and I think that was actually covered at the Northwest Landing annual meeting recently. I don't know if anybody there wants to address that or not. Jim, you want to comment on that? No, we're getting both. More qualified people than the other.
That isn't it. Where? Maybe that's where she went away. That is a no. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 testing. No. You just turned it off. You just turned it off. 1, 2, 3. But we're gonna switch mics.
Busy.
The comparisons you saw on the slides do not include the amount of money we do pay to the ROA. That is an accurate observation. Everybody who lives in Northwest Landing pays an additional about $300 a year. I'm sorry.
$32.67 a month.
$32.67 a month. So yes, we do have a higher burden than what is on the slides.
Harold?
I'm Harold Riddell. I've been here in DuPont for the last 10 years. First of all, I'd like to thank the board up there for their fine service and so forth. One of the reasons why I moved to DuPont, I came from Allen, Washington. I'm a cancer patient, I'm a heart patient, I'm everything you can think of, but I'm still alive. That's why I moved to DuPont, because it's closer to Madigan. And when I first came here, we had outstanding ambulance services by Madigan, the Army. And then all of a sudden we cut loose and said, we don't need you anymore, or they quit, one of the two. I can't believe, ladies and gentlemen, that we're in a situation that we are in today. What's happened? Why? Why did we get into this mess? What happened? We got some people on the board that can't think straight or figure right. Something went wrong. I'm an investigator, I used to be, and I kind of would like to investigate this whole thing to see what the hell's wrong. Why we are like this. I just would like to say that I can't believe the comment that I heard since I got back from vacation on Tuesday night that we're thinking about building a skateboard park for $100 and some thousand when we're in this kind of a mess. What the hell is wrong with people? The insurance alone will kill us. If we can't afford to clean up the memorial park that we have up here, where we have our monuments for our service people, and we can think about this, there's something wrong with this. There's something wrong with this whole organization for some reason. I just can't believe that we operate like this. And I'd sure like to see something done about the situation. Thank you.
Okay, Alan.
My name is Alan Kroll. Harold is my good friend and neighbor. I wish he were a little more plain-spoken so that we'd know exactly how he feels. I'm not averse to paying more taxes. My problem is that I would like to see more responsible, thoughtful spending.
Betty Sable. Let's see.
Looking at history is important so we don't repeat the same mistakes in the future. But it's not going to get us out of where we're at now. I always like to say to my staff, it's Apollo 13 time. And we need to address the issues they had. I don't think there's a member here that doesn't love DuPont and the services that we have.
Brian Schroeder.
Hello. My family's no stranger to the difficulties that the city has been through, as my wife was one of the two people who lost their jobs at the cuts. I'm also no stranger to volunteering for different things that the city does, as I served on the planning agency for close to 2 years. And I coach a baseball team and I coach a basketball team. What I would like to understand, or at least dispel or have a conversation around, is the one resource that I think is vastly underutilized in this community, which is the people in it. And we've had a volunteer firefighter program before. We've had volunteer EMS. The people in this community have always rallied together to clean up trails or pick up garbage, or if it's, pulling weeds or scotch broom. I mean, the people in this community are pretty resilient and giving of their time. So we've heard a lot from previous mayors about forming focus groups to talk about things, and I was just wondering how much action has really come of the volunteer forces within the community, and I think that's part of the problem. So there's needs for EMS, I understand that, but there's also needs for recreation for our kids. It's a community, which means it's made up of people from all ages and all groups and all needs. So I don't think you can forego recreation and parks and things of that nature just in spite of for EMS. It's a whole community. And so we have to look at solutions for all the problems, not just one side of it. So thank you.
Okay, Joe, I'm not going to try your last name.
Okay, so my question is...
But you won't get recorded. You won't get recorded on TV.
Oh, okay, I won't get recorded. So I can't use that against me in court, probably. So my question is, I'll thank everybody too, because I know it's an awful lot of hard work to volunteer to do anything, and this sounds extremely complicated, and I looked at your history of all the meetings. And I agree with a lot of the sides here that are presented. I think accountability is necessary, but I absolutely think that you got to spend money to get what you want. And I like living here because of the way it is. I don't want it to go downhill like I saw happen around parts of Colorado Springs because they didn't approve minuscule raises in tax valuations, and then a lot of things just started to fall apart. On the other hand, my question is peripheral related to the health overall in the economy, especially downtown for our business owners. I'm not in favor of any of the increases of fees at all for any business owners here. I want them to be here occupying the space to suck people in because they're spending money, and that should generate revenue for the town. Has there been a foreclosure on the property in DuPont's downtown business district? What is the story on that?
Mark, you going to cover that since you probably have firsthand knowledge?
Well, I said am I on? It died again.
They can use their table lights as well. No.
It's going to record it.
All right, to answer your question, a foreclosure notice was put on all the buildings. The reason for the foreclosure was that the owner of the properties, he wasn't making his payments. He tried to negotiate with the banks so that he could reduce his payments. And the bank said, no, the only way we will talk to you is if you don't make payments. Well, he stopped making payments, so the bank would talk to him. It's the dice that he rolled, and right now, they're talking to him, but we don't, it's still, it's still under review, whether or not they're going to allow him to finance, or if they're going to put the entire, the entire building project up for auction. So that's how it stands at the moment. And just one more thing, though, to take the fear, because when you hear foreclosure on businesses, right, downtown DuPont is just not going to close up and go away, because everybody that is a tenant in DuPont is under contract, and those contracts are honored. So we're here for a while. It's just we're going to find out who the next owner of the building is going to be, all right? Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank the committee for doing the city council's job for them for the past 10 weeks. This is no small order. These people sacrificed many evenings, but I want to be clear that this budget type of discussion is a council function of which we elect people to represent us. So make no mistake. And the next thing I'm going to say is going to, it may be offensive to some people, but it needs to be said. And the irony of being in this larger room is there is an elephant in the room. And what we have here is a mess that was created by people. And we don't want to talk about how we got here, but I think it's vital if you're going to come and ask the citizens to pony up for a bailout. And that's exactly what it is. It's a bailout for a decision that was made in 2007 to not go to a vote of the people to ask for a bond, which is pretty much standard practice,
in funding the capital facility. Instead, the city decided to go another route, a route where a vote of the people wasn't required, even though the city had the voters had just approved building Pioneer Middle School. So the question I have is basically, who is going to be held responsible for getting us in this mess and expect us to give you blindly more money to the same group of people, both in governance and in staff, so that we can say, now we trust you 5 years down the road with even more money? And I think that people need to ask themselves, who's responsible and who's going to be held accountable? Because when General Motors and Chrysler were bailed out by the government, the top CEOs had to step down. And they lost their multi-million-dollar jobs and their golden parachutes as a result because of the taxpayers bailing out their businesses. The city had no business to go and kind of flirt with commercial real estate development, which is exactly what they did. And I guarantee everyone in this room, there are a lot more questions that have not been asked and have not been addressed, and that needs to be taken on by the mayor and his staff and our council. Hold them accountable before you approve anything. And I, for one, will not approve any levy for any amount, for any reason, until this culture is changed in DuPont.
I'm just going to add one comment. We have heard a lot of numbers. We do not own the Civic Center. We are technically leasing it back from the group of investors who own the certificates of participation. Our agreement is such that we will have to meet our annual payment of about $1.27 million a year for 30 years. At the end of 30 years, we will own the Civic Center. We also have a 10-year lock-in period for the current interest rate we're paying on those certificates of participation. Thank you. The current effective interest rate is 6.113%.